The city's cacophony had always been a comforting constant in my life, a symphony of car horns, chattering crowds, and the distant hum of urban machinery. I'm Jacob, a 30-year-old software engineer with an affinity for the more philosophical side of things. But lately, this symphony had started to sound different to me, repetitive, almost scripted. I began to notice peculiar patterns in the people around me, their conversations looping like a broken record, their actions predictably mundane. I remember walking through the park one crisp autumn morning. The leaves were a mosaic of red and gold, and the air carried that cool, inviting nip that heralds the approach of winter. People were out jogging, walking their dogs, lost in their own worlds. But something felt off. A woman passed me, her face buried in her phone, muttering the same sentence over and over. A jogger ran by, his footsteps in unnaturally consistent rhythm. I brushed these observations off as products of my overactive imagination. But the seed of doubt had been planted. As I continued my daily routine, the city and its inhabitants seemed increasingly artificial, like actors on a stage playing their parts for an audience of one me. My curiosity turned into a mild obsession. I started reading more about philosophy, trying to find an explanation for this unsettling sensation. That's when I stumbled upon Solipsism, the concept that only one's own mind is sure to exist. The idea resonated with me, offering a potential explanation for the uncanny occurrences I had been witnessing. This led me to an old library in a forgotten corner of the city. The building was a relic, its walls lined with dusty shelves crammed with ancient tomes. In a dimly lit section, tucked away in the back, I found a book so old its title had faded, its pages yellowed with age. It was here that I first read about solipsism in depth, and the book suggested a method to test the reality of one's existence. I should have stopped there, content with the knowledge I had gained. But my curiosity was a ravenous beast, clawing at the corners of my mind, urging me to delve deeper into the rabbit hole. So, I set out to test the reality I had always taken for granted, unaware of the Pandora's box I was about to open. The old book became my guide, its cryptic passages filling my thoughts day and night. It proposed a series of experiments to test the fabric of reality, tests that I, in my growing obsession, was eager to undertake. I started small, making predictions about people's behavior and actions based on the patterns I had observed. To my astonishment, my predictions were often correct. People I had known for years began to seem like hollow shells, their responses and actions eerily predictable. My experiments grew bolder. I would alter my daily route to work or speak random, nonsensical phrases to colleagues, just to see how the world around me would react. The results were always the same. The world adjusted itself seamlessly, as if everything and everyone were part of a program, adapting to maintain the illusion of normality. My friends and family started to notice the change in me. I became distant, my conversations with them shallow and disengaged. How could I relate to them when I was beginning to question their very existence? I saw the hurt in their eyes, the confusion at my cold demeanor, but I couldn't bring myself to explain the truth of my suspicions. How could I, when I wasn't even sure of it myself? One night, after a particularly unsettling day of experiments, I sat alone in my apartment, the book open in front of me. It described a final test, one that would irrevocably prove the nature of reality. It was a risky endeavor, the book warned, with consequences that could not be undone. But by then, my need for the truth had eclipsed all caution. The experiment required a sort of mental hack, a way to tamper with what the book referred to as the code of reality. It was a complex process, involving deep meditation and visualization techniques that would take weeks, if not months, to master. But I was determined. Every night, I would sit in the darkness of my apartment, practicing, pushing my mind to its limits. Finally, after countless hours of preparation, I was ready. I remember the night vividly. The air was still, the city unusually quiet, as if holding its breath. I sat in the center of my living room, the book's instructions etched into my memory, and began the final experiment. The process was intense and disorienting. As I delved deeper into the meditation, the boundaries between my mind and the external world began to blur. I felt as if I were unraveling the very fabric of reality, thread by thread. The sensation was both exhilarating and terrifying. Days turned into weeks, and my perception of the world shifted dramatically. The city around me felt like a mirage, its colors too bright, its sounds too sharp. People seemed like puppets, their strings pulled by an unseen hand. Even the sun in the sky felt like a spotlight in a grand theater, its light artificial. I became reclusive, barely leaving my apartment. My friends and family reached out with concern, but their voices sounded distant, like echoes in a dream. I responded with vague assurances, my mind preoccupied with the experiment. They couldn't understand, how could they? They were part of the illusion I was trying to escape. As I continued the experiment, strange occurrences became commonplace. I would find objects in my apartment moved or missing, as if the world was rearranging itself when I wasn't looking. Time seemed fluid, the night stretching on indefinitely, only to be broken by a sudden dawn. The people I interacted with started repeating phrases, their expressions frozen in a loop. My reality was unraveling, and with it, my sanity. I began to doubt everything. Was I too just a part of this elaborate illusion? The thought haunted me, a specter lurking in the shadows of my mind. But I pressed on, driven by a need for the truth that overshadowed all fear. Then came the night of the final step. The book had described it as a point of no return, and as I sat in the darkness of my apartment, I understood why. I was about to tear through the veil of reality, to glimpse what lay beyond. The air was charged with anticipation, and I felt a surge of adrenaline as I began the final incantation. The world around me trembled, the fabric of reality straining under the weight of my will. And then, with a final push, it tore open. The moment the fabric of reality tore, it was as if the entire world held its breath. A deafening silence enveloped me, and for a moment, everything was still. Then, the illusion shattered. The walls of my apartment dissolved into a void, an endless expanse of emptiness. The city, the people, the sky, all of it peeled away like layers of paint, revealing the stark, unfathomable truth beneath. I stood alone in this void, my heart pounding in my chest. There was nothing, no sound, no light, no ground beneath my feet. Just an infinite emptiness that stretched in all directions. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. I was the only real entity in a world of shadows. Everyone I had ever known, every face, every smile, they were all fabrications, NPCs in a grand simulation. Desperation clawed at my mind. I thought of my parents, their warmth, their laughter. Had it all been a lie? Memories flashed before my eyes, birthdays, holidays, moments of joy and sorrow. They felt real, so vivid and full of emotion. But in this void, they crumbled into nothingness, revealed as mere scripts in a cosmic play. I tried to speak, to call out to anyone or anything that might hear me. But there was no sound in the void, my voice lost to the emptiness. The loneliness was suffocating, a weight so heavy it threatened to crush me. I had sought the truth, but the truth was a nightmare reality where I was utterly, hopelessly alone. In my despair, I recalled the book, its cryptic warnings. There had been no mention of how to return, how to close the tear I had made. I was trapped in this liminal space, a prisoner of my own curiosity. The enormity of what I had done began to sink in. I had unraveled the fabric of my world, and now I was adrift in the consequences. For what felt like an eternity, I floated in the void, my mind teetering on the brink of madness. Then, in the distance, I saw something, a faint glimmer of light. A beacon of hope, or perhaps the final twist in this macabre revelation. With nothing left to lose, I moved toward it, each step an effort in this formless abyss. As I approached the glimmer, it grew brighter, coalescing into a tangible form. It was a door, standing alone in the void, its frame bathed in a soft, inviting light. With a trembling hand, I reached for the handle, my heart a mix of fear and desperation. The door opened to a scene that was both familiar and foreign, my own apartment, but altered, as if seen through a distorted lens. Stepping through the door, I found myself back in the world I had known, but it was changed. The people were still there, moving about their lives, but they were different. Their movements were mechanical, their conversations hollow echoes of human interaction. It was clear to me now they were NPCs, programmed entities in a simulated world. I wandered through the city, a ghost among shadows. I tried to interact with these NPCs, searching for a semblance of the connections I had once cherished. But their responses were empty, devoid of the warmth and complexity of true human interaction. It was like speaking to a well-crafted hologram, a convincing facade with nothing beneath. In this new reality, the loneliness was a constant companion, a reminder of the truth I had uncovered. I longed for the ignorance I had once possessed, the blissful unawareness of the world's true nature. But there was no going back. The experiment had changed everything, and I was left to navigate this hollow existence alone. I searched for a way to undo what I had done, to close the tear I had made in the fabric of reality. But the book offered no answers, its pages silent on the matter of return. I was a man marooned in a sea of artificiality, clinging to the hope of finding a way back to a reality that no longer existed. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. I explored the limits of this new world, testing the boundaries of the simulation. But every discovery only served to deepen my sense of isolation. The world was a canvas, and I was the only real brushstroke upon it. In the end, I accepted my solitary existence in this fabricated world. The search for a way back became a distant memory, replaced by a resigned acceptance of my new reality. I found solace in the small things, the artificial sunrise, the programmed breeze, the NPCs that passed by in their predictable routines. They were echoes of a life I once knew, a life that now seemed like a distant dream. I began to document my experiences, writing a diary of my existence as the sole consciousness in this simulated world. It became my anchor, a way to process the profound loneliness and the surreal nature of my reality. The pages filled with reflections, observations, and philosophical musings. In writing, I found a sense of purpose, a way to make sense of the nonsensical. As time passed, the sharp edges of my despair dulled into a melancholic acceptance. I created routines, interacted with the NPCs, and even found moments of fleeting joy in the simple acts of this artificial life. The world around me was a construct, but it was all I had. Occasionally, I would revisit the door in the void, the portal that stood between realities. It remained closed, a silent testament to my irreversible journey. I wondered if there were others like me, real minds trapped in their own versions of this simulation. The thought was both comforting and terrifying, a shared experience in an isolated existence. The diary grew thick with entries, a testament to my solitary journey. I often pondered the nature of my own existence. Was I, too, just an NPC in someone else's simulation? Was my consciousness real, or just another layer of the illusion? These questions lingered in my mind, unanswered and perhaps unanswerable. My story, this record of a lone real entity in a world of shadows, is a paradoxical existence. In the end, I embraced the ambiguity of my situation, finding peace in the unanswered mysteries of my reality. The world around me continued its programmed dance, and I, its lone spectator, learned to find beauty in the artificiality. And so, I leave these words as a testament to my journey, a solitary consciousness in a fabricated world. To whoever finds them, know that in the depths of the unknown, in the heart of the simulation, I found a way to exist. And perhaps, in that existence, there's a sliver of something profoundly real.